So let me set this up here. I'm going to paint the picture. So during the pregame warm-ups, about an hour, 40 minutes, hour and a half before the game, long before the game started, players are out shooting jump shots, and some of the Warrior players noticed that something didn't smell right. And that led to one of the assistant coaches who then contacted somebody and said, hey, I think there's some funny business going on here, that the rim is not right. There's something wrong with the basket the Warriors were shooting on. And so once the button was pushed, they brought a ladder out, they brought a stick to measure, and the officials paid attention there. They looked at it all, and they did determine that it was not a figment of imagination, that the basket that Golden State was warming up on was actually a couple of inches too tall. So the too tall rim, every inch matters, apparently, in basketball, I know. All right, so let us discuss. Now, this has led to a number of comments indicating that this was an intentional act. So the question, was this rim being a little bit too high a harmless mistake, or did the Celtics choreograph cheating in the NBA Finals? So the arrow on this one, the arrow is pointing to harmless mistake, okay? It's pointing to harmless mistake. Now, I've got Mark Twain, Liberty, and Blip, and we will combine all of these things together, and we're going to make the Baba Ganoush is what we're going to do. All right, so to lead off here, I wish that this had been a grand global conspiracy, that I believe that, because, man, would that be great. I'd be all about that story, right? All about this story. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Right? It's not the case, because I've seen a thing or two over the years. And back in the days where I was at NBA games all the time, and I get there very early oftentimes, way, way before anybody else would be in there, and I'd be hanging out, kind of doing my thing, getting ready for whatever show I was doing that night, and I witnessed the rim measurement on more than one occasion. This happened multiple times. It was rare. I'm not saying it happened all the time. It was rare, but it did happen. And so when I saw what happened on Wednesday, and I thought, well, this happened. If it takes place on a regular season game on a random Wednesday when Sacramento is playing Oklahoma City, nobody gives a rat's ass. Nobody pays attention. But on the big stage, I get it. On the big stage, the finals, oh, man, this is massive. I can't believe it. Raising the rim to mess with the Warriors. If this was an intentional act, I don't think it was. You know, some people say, oh, it sounds wonderful. It really makes no sense. If you think about this logically, all right, it makes no sense. And I'll walk you through why I am a skeptic that this was done intentionally. This was just, I believe it was just a mistake that was made by somebody in the arena, but not to try to screw the Warriors, right? As Mark Twain famously wrote, never let the facts get in the way of a good story. So let me give you my evidence here. The way it works in basketball, the road team decides which basket, when they come out to the court, they decide which basket they want to use before the game. Right? That's the general decorum of basketball. It's been that way for a very long time. So when the players come out to start warming up before the game, they'll decide, okay, we want to go that direction, the north end or the south end of the arena, however it might be. So that means that whoever did this, if their plan was to mess with the mojo of Golden State, they had a 50-50 chance that Steph Curry and his pals were going to pick the basket that they picked. They could have easily picked the other basket, which means the Celtics would have had the funky rims, and they would have been the one dealing with that. And the other thing, which is somewhat obvious here, is that people change at halftime. One team shoots on one hoop, and then they switch it up at halftime. Now, furthermore, why did this thing take a life of its own, this rim story at the Garden? Why such a big deal? Well, that's easy. That's geography and history. Right? Geography and history. It is the magic. I don't know if magic's the right word. It is the legend of Boston professional sports. there has been a fog, if you will, that has been hovering around the Patriots for 20-plus years, the Red Sox, the Celtics, but the Celtics not so much, but you got to go back to the Red Auerbach smoking cigars to find them messing around with things in the locker room, the visiting locker room, whatnot. But all of that, all of the history, right, combined with the geography, and this is a man who shot Liberty Valance situation. When the legend becomes the fact, you go with the legend. You don't want to hear the fact that this was most likely just an honest mistake because it's not a good story. The legend is that the Celtics, because they play in Boston, they've got to be dirty. Therefore, this had to be an intentional act. But I gave you my argument. I don't buy that based on what I have known over the years when it comes to these NBA games. All right, now parting shot. What impact, this is the other thing that's popped up here, what impact did this rim movement have on the outcome of the game? Now, since Golden State ended up losing the game and they did not play well in the first quarter, they were down by as many as 15 points in the first quarter. Warriors shot less than 35%, so the argument being made by some, I believe it's a straw man argument, is that this affected them. That something that happened an hour and a half before the game impacted the way the Warriors started the game, and so the Celtics had an unfair advantage. They're treating this like a Greek tragedy. So, again, my answer to did this affect the outcome of the game, what impact did it have? Zippo. That's my answer. If this affected the outcome of the game, the Golden State Warriors, instead of being called Warriors, they should be called the Golden State Cream Cheese, because you got to be kidding here. It was a blip in time, a temporary deviation from the norm, and the game started at 9 o'clock in Boston. The pregame pause lasted for less than 5 minutes, give or take, and it took place an hour and a half before the game. And may I put another addendum on that? It impacted both teams because the Celtics, they were warming up on their end, and the officials are, well, let's make sure the rims are right on this end. So then they came over and they had to measure and they stopped the Celtics from shooting there. So therefore, I believe this would be even. This is nothing. The warm-ups resumed right after that. The only thing that was accomplished, I will concede. Okay, I will concede the only thing that was accomplished was to add another thick layer of intrigue. That's it. You know, gave us guys that are gas bags and blowhards something to talk about. You know, debate shows can go back and forth and rant and rave and all that. Now, meanwhile, turning the page on that, we have Game 4 of the NBA Finals, which is tomorrow. They're off tonight. Back at it on a Friday night. Don't like to play on Friday nights because it's not a good TV night, but the Warriors and Celtics, Game 4. And the line opens, Celtics a 3.5-point favorite, but that has gone up. And now, Boston, they've gone up by a half point. So the Celtics, a 4-point home favorite in that game. Early money, not a lot of reaction. You can't get worked up because early money is not it's overnight, the overnight numbers. But the early money is heavily in favor of Golden State to even up the NBA Finals, both in terms of cash and the number of tickets that have been supposedly put in already at the gambling halls for that particular game.